Hello, I'm Chris Schnee, writer of science fiction and fantasy. I'm trying something a little different today, telling the story of a game campaign that I did with a little bit of AI-based illustration. We'll see how that goes. The game this time is called Exalted. It's about very powerful heroes who are trying to fix a giant mess created by their own selves in the past. My character is named Seaglass. He's a native of an island chain in the tropical Western Ocean. For years, he's traveled aboard the Denzik city ship, a collection of magical ships that travels around the world for trade. During one of these expeditions, his ship got attacked by a horrible group of people called the Lintha Pirates, who are demon-blooded people. He behaved heroically during the attack, and as a result, he suddenly got powers. He became a type of being called a Solar Exalted, which means he has powers blessed by the sun god. In his case, that means he is smart, he is dexterous, he has peak human abilities in some ways, such as parkour and being great at fighting ordinary guys. He is immune to fire and blindness, and he is an amazing crafter with supernatural powers in that area. He's also good at journeying, such as being able to hike indefinitely without getting tired. Officially, he has divine sanction to be one of the heroic leaders of the world, to fix everything and rule over everyone. Unfortunately for everyone, that group of people got lynched in the distant past for arguably very good reasons for what they did. So instead of being automatically revered as a hero, Seaglass is subject to being executed if he's ever actually caught and captured by strong enough people. He's going to try to help people without actually getting caught for what he is. At least, until he becomes powerful enough to not worry anymore. This adventure begins as the Denzik city ship that he lives on arrives in the port city of Chiaroscuro. This is a city of broken glass skyscrapers. It used to be one of the largest in the world, and now it still is, but it's in a much diminished state. The old skyscrapers of magically hardened glass have shattered. People live in the ruined stumps of them, and in hovels they built out of glass and other remaining stores and other buildings that are in that area. It's still a prosperous trade city, relying on cattle, food, local crafting, and trade at the port. As the ship arrives, it begins to unload people and do its usual business there, selling all sorts of things. Because it's along the hot southern coast, they do trade in things like magically never melting ice from the far north, and they buy magically never cooling rocks from the far south, and so on, along with various exotic alchemy ingredients from the far western islands and other things from the jungles in the east, and so on. The Denzik are also known for having trade in random weird things that are unpredictable. One of the latest odd ventures is a collection of valuable books for sale. As Seaglass works on the cargo unloading and sale process, there is some dismay about the disappearance of this crate. Time's a-wasting before the ship has to get going on the rest of its worldly journey, so this stuff needs to be found, and Seaglass is a good guy to go looking for it. There's a noisy public execution being held, which is creating a distraction for other people, and thieves probably use the opportunity to run off with stuff. Seaglass doesn't know the city very well, but he does know all about cargo. So he tries to figure out where he would likely find thieves who've stolen stuff. And with a successful wisdom check, he figures out, yes, there actually is a good place for this. There is an open secret smuggling port, which is built into an ancient subway system from thousands of years ago. It's still being used, and it's likely that the stolen goods were brought there for storage, hoping to delay long enough that the ship will give up looking for it. So Seaglass, who's a good swimmer by experience, drops into the water and swims right into the smuggler haven, evading any guards at the surface level. The shady folk down there are surprised to see somebody emerging soaking wet from the none-too-clean harbor. And from there, he finds people gambling. There's a bizarre brothel offering various social interaction and play with a real live fae, which is weird since the fae are soul-eating monsters in the setting, but hey, they can be nice. There's also some questionable stuff here for sale, alchemy ingredients and so on. Seaglass tips a beggar to ask about stuff that he's seen lately, and he gets some evidence that there's stuff going on in this brothel that might be being used for hidden cargo. So Seaglass goes there pretending to be a customer, and he uses the power of the sun to enhance his vision and dry off. What he sees is that there is a hidden crate in one of the back rooms. He thinks that's probably it. It's got a suspicious trail of distinctive chalk dust that was from the ships. So he pays for his drinks and leaves, and he hurries back to his own shipmates to tell them where he thinks the stuff has been hidden. Would they like to organize a raid? Yeah, he's pretty good at getting his crewmen to take matters into their own hands and come along with them, rather than going to the authorities. So they send a team down to the depths of this little pirate trading port type place. And at first the brothel owners figure these are just regular customers. The way they end up handling it, though, is that they have a dragon blood in the party from Denzik. These guys are not like the Solars. They have magic powers of their own, but they're much weaker. If you've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, they're that kind of guy. But they live for several hundred years, and they're considered big shots. Their presence is entirely legal, and they're generally considered a type of living saint. So there's a dragon blood in this Denzik trade party as the heavy and the authority figure. He invokes his authority, and Seaglass shuts up and stands in the background. That guy says, hey, you got something that belongs to a Denzik customer who's expecting delivery. He's going to be upset at me if he doesn't get it, and that will reflect badly on me. There's no need to make that happen, is there? And the brothel people sweat, having this magical guy who is threatening them. And one of them cracks and says, okay, take it. It just got misplaced. See, we were holding it for your customer. And the dragon blood guy says, oh yeah, that's considerate of you. Mind moving the crate topside for us. We'll take it from there. So Seaglass has helped to find the cargo without actually having to fight or reveal anything about himself. Problem solved for now. Seaglass appreciates the difference between his own powers and the status of the dragon blood, because those guys are weaker, but they don't actually have to hide what they are. With that theft undone, Seaglass goes looking for more rumors about things he might do in the city and ways to increase his own power. And he hears something about children possibly being in danger, some kind of kidnapper going on, and that's definitely not the first time in a big law of the city like this. There's a whole area outside the skyscraper district where there's not a lot of law, and the local mafia has control. Seaglass has been trained to think this kind of problem is his job to solve. And why is that? Well, he was raised by a cult, partly. When he learned that he had these powers, he was approached by a guy who taught him that he was one of the mysterious Shining Ones who's supposed to save the world, and listen carefully to his special spiritual advisors. He has actually been hoodwinked in that respect, and he doesn't know what's really going on with this cult, but he's been at least taught to try to be a good person with his powers instead of abusing his power, so that's probably a good thing overall, for now. Eventually he might learn more about how he's being manipulated and used, but it's not a problem yet. So he figures there ought to be a do-gooder here, when there's this children kidnapping thing going on. He asks about how bad this mob is, and whether they're actually a useful protection gang or just useless robbers. And he gets told, well, they're some of both. They had their good and bad days and what they do. Since Seaglass doesn't have a lot of contacts in the city yet, he's at a loss about how to get in contact with this mob and find out what's going on. He tries to ask around, but can't immediately make any contacts. He talks to his Denzik contacts instead aboard the ship, and they're about to leave, so they can't provide a whole lot of help either. They know a guy, though, that he can talk to. A guy who is living in the slums, and he helps to manage an important well and its aqueduct connection. So Seaglass goes to this guy, the well manager, and explains that he's a member of the Denzik people, and he wants to honestly say, I've got skills to offer at repairing and building things, and I'm looking to get a favor to help find certain criminals. And it turns out he got a really bad reaction roll in the background, and this guy he talked to was exactly the wrong person to talk to. Not good. Worse yet, our mighty hero is completely oblivious to this, and he doesn't understand that he's talked to the wrong guy. So this well manager smiles and hesitates, saying, oh yeah, you could definitely find paying work. Let me make some inquiries about what you're looking for and get back to you tonight. Go over to this secluded alley, and we'll meet up there and talk to you. And Seaglass smiles and walks away, and he agrees to walk into the secluded alley that night. Great, it'll work fine. So the good news is that he does encounter the local gang that's been kidnapping people. The bad news is that they're in a dark alley with 10 guys, most of whom are just ordinary goons, and two of them are a little stronger. Seaglass belatedly realizes that they're not here to just discuss business opportunities, and the gentlemen with the clubs and knives are not all that helpful. And Seaglass confronts them, saying, you guys really had no problem with making kids disappear? One of the heavies says, who said anything about them? And the well manager guy says, it's nothing, kick his ass. So two of the men lunge for Seaglass to grab him. But here, this peak human stuff that Seaglass has actually comes into play. Everybody but the heavies is pretty much useless against him unless they're enough to qualify as a whole mob. So he backhands one of them as he dodges, draws his sword, and immediately starts whacking people backhanded as prepared to start killing. He says, you don't want to go this route. I got told about some sicko doing this, and it sounds like that's your gang. The gangsters here start being a little confused here, not sure what's going on. What the hell is this guy talking about? What's he saying about kidnapping? And their boss tries to sick them on Seaglass anyway to attack him. They manage to punch him once, one of the heavier guys, but he starts hitting people left and right. He rushes around and hits a bunch of people at once in a couple of moments. If anybody were to look closely enough, they would notice a glittering sun emblem on his forehead for a little while. He's starting to show enough power that they might catch him at something, but they're not paying a lot of attention because he's beating them up. The result, seconds later, is that he's killed a couple of people and knocked others unconscious, and he's grabbed the ringleader to say, "What is going on here? You better start talking." The ringleader says, "I don't know much, man. I got hired by one of the local nobles to collect some research subjects for some kind of magical stuff he's doing, people who wouldn't be missed. It wasn't just kids. It was miscellaneous victims, random bums, nobody important. You shouldn't care. Why should you care?" And Seaglass dramatically says, "Protecting the innocent is my job here." Through force, Seaglass makes the well guy tell him where the kidnapped victims are being held, and then ties them up in that very place, and arranges to sabotage a meeting with the nobleman who's planning to buy them. He also uses his own influence to gather a small mob of followers, friends and relatives of the people who've been kidnapped, to help rescue them and provide some muscle. However, that attempt to ambush the buyer doesn't go all that well either. This guy is a minor wizard who quickly realizes that something is very wrong with this meeting. The nobleman tries to play it cool at first, but then launches a sneak attack. He flings some kind of explosive orb at Seaglass's face. Seaglass easily swats this attack aside and sends his mob in to start fighting. The wizard has a couple of guys of his own, but they can't do much to him either. The nobleman flings another orb that explodes in Seaglass's face, wounding him. When Seaglass actually survives that, the man is impressed, saying, "You're good. Looking for a job?" Seaglass rushes at him anyway and punches him. But the nobleman says, "Stand the hell down. You'd be useful to me." "Doing what? Kidnapping?" "Enforcement," says the noble. And that wizard pulls out a sword and strikes him, but Seaglass parries that blow. Seaglass knocks him down. The nobleman is bleeding and panting and saying, "Who the hell are you anyway? You're some foreign freak with the blue hair. I'm nobility. You don't belong here." And Seaglass takes a little risk here and lets an unnatural gleam of sunlight glint around his blade, even though it's night. He says, "Heaven sent me, but I can send you direct to the underworld. Make your move." And the villain flees. Seaglass lets him, urging his minions to shoo too. Problem solved for now. They've been able to rescue the kidnapped victims. Everybody scatters into the night before any authorities show up, and everybody is stabilized. Those who are wounded. However, the kidnapper got away, and there's now some reputation about Seaglass possibly being more than a mortal man, and this might be dangerous. So, Seaglass begins to try to establish a base of power in the slums of the city. He finds a spot that's a long walk from the inner city, and he collects some bricks and other materials from a burned-out schoolhouse building. With his powers, he could build something very quickly, something like 100 times the rate of a normal person, but again, he's trying not to be completely obvious about what he's doing, so he has to work more slowly. He also has some ability to conjure silver, so as long as he's careful, he can hide his source of wealth. Within days, he gets a visit from the local mob. He's not sure how closely these people are affiliated with the ones he fought recently. So when they show up asking about donations to the local neighborhood protection fund, he isn't intimidated. He says, "Oh yeah, he can pay, but wasn't there a kidnapping problem recently they didn't deal with?" Their reaction is neutral, and they say, "Yeah, very funny. When the noble people get involved, we don't always succeed. It's not quite our business what kind of stuff we get involved with, and sometimes it's dirtier than other times. You look like you're too prosperous to vanish without being noticed, though. You're a little safer. Still, care to donate?" And Seaglass says, "Yes, all right." He flashes some silver that he's willing to hand over. It's nothing to him. He says, "In fact, I'm interested in helping out around here. Anything the neighborhood needs done in terms of fixing things that you might send me out to handle." The gangsters are surprised by Seaglass's offer. They're not really used to people offering to do more than pay, and they have to think about it for a little while and say, "Yeah, actually, how good are you at pipe laying?" So Seaglass gets asked to fix the piping in a nearby area. For him, this is a small and somewhat frustrating beginning. He thinks he's supposed to be a world-saving hero, but he's being asked to fix plumbing in a city. He tells himself that actually it's a part of learning about the infrastructure of a major city that he would like to repair someday, so it's a good start. There is a complication to this job, too. It's winter, and there's a rare and intense storm that threatens flooding in the desert. Some low-lying bits of the slums are in danger. As the intense rain begins falling over the next couple of days, Seaglass tries to aid evacuation efforts by rapidly laying pipes as swiftly as he can get away with, and he tries to use his own influence abilities to organize more emergency work paying people a little bit to actually do the job with him. He's got the skill to work extremely quickly, so it's a matter of performance to see if he can do it intelligently, quickly, and in a way that's not too flashy yet. And how he does it that, he's pretty good in every respect except the wisdom part, again. So the great solar hero gathers people to work with him, organizing to improve their city and defend themselves. He works with skill and tireless devotion. However, he slips up slightly, performing work that's faster than any reasonable effort would be. Rumors start to spread that he's maybe a suspicious magical character. The most likely explanation for someone like him is that he is god-blooded, meaning he's the child of some minor godling. There's a fair number of those in the city, and other strange beings or magic users, so it's not too suspicious yet, and most such beings are legal to be here. But he does have to be more careful from now on. With the storm drainage handled, Seaglass has more credibility with the locals and the mob. He applies his influence to try curbing the worst side of the mob. This is a project for him that involves social influence to pay people off and get them to focus on something other than crime, partly because he is paying them. So he is taming the worst impulses of this group and has kind of a tame armed gang working for him now. And he has bigger plans for that group. In order to try to get them on his side and distract them, he doesn't get involved in any leg-breaking work they do for the actual crime, but he does things like repairing a warehouse that they use for smuggled goods. He lets on that when he does that kind of thing, it's best not to watch him work, for whatever mystical reason, and they get the idea that he's got like a mystery stone source and supernatural speed, so they don't want to watch whatever it is he's doing. Maybe it's demonic, who knows. That's a good enough explanation for him for now, and gets him to mostly leave him alone. With this contact with the mob, he gets more information about the city underworks, and he goes exploring. He knows more about the city infrastructure now and the people in it. To do more repair of the city's physical and social structure, he finds out that he's probably going to need the help of a particular alchemist. He is being held prisoner by Grandmother Bright, and that would be not much of a problem except that Grandmother Bright is both socially influential and literally a god of some power. She has her own district within the city, which is weirdly intact compared to the hovels in other areas and the skyscrapers in what was the old downtown area. So Seaglass must travel to the Bright district. That's easy enough. He soon learns several things about that place. The goddess physically holds court in a plaza there, appearing as this kindly old lady who is a bit crabby sometimes and will do favors for people like translating ancient documents or making odd prophecies, and she's known for asking strange things in return. Sometimes a seemingly pointless act that will have consequences generations later. It's not clear how she knows all these things, but she is a minor god. It's also dangerous to cross her. She's been known to transform troublemakers into faceless golden automatons. Seaglass tries to think about what to give her as a gift, but he can't find anything particularly good. Grandmother Bright glares at him when he reaches the front of a line for an audience, and she says, "You don't belong here." He says, "I mean no harm, lady. In fact, I want to help improve the city. It's something you want to protect, right? I'm looking for ways to help." And Grandmother Bright says, "You can start helping the city by taking yourself out of it." Seaglass sighs, and he takes a risk, speaking carefully. "Look closely, Grandmother. I offer more aid than you know." And the goddess looks with her spiritual sight, and senses that Seaglass is much more than an ordinary man. She gets slightly more interested in that, but not necessarily very happy about it. She says, "I think I remember you in particular from a long time ago, another life, a past incarnation. It's not a fond memory. If you actually care about my city, why don't you start with fixing the lighthouses?" Seaglass looks out to the harbor, where there are two giant lighthouses that seem to be functioning. He says, "I thought they were working." Grandmother Bright says, "They're dim, boy, and so are you for showing up so rudely. Now get!" Seaglass walks away without being able to directly address what he was after. Got a poor reaction from her, it didn't have much of a good gift. But he does have a way to win her in for favor now. He heads for the harbor. There are long breakwaters, each with one of these giant lighthouses on it. He's not sure that he can easily repair them. Then there's the fact that they're guarded and staffed with slaves who are slowly turning heavy wheels to shine the bright beams out to sea. It's a crude, improvised attempt to get ancient technology working well enough for use. So he figures he's going to try to fix these things as a sort of anti-sabotage, sneaking in and making them work a lot better. The plan is to show up as a regular savant, who might have some minor magical ability, but nothing too out of the ordinary for this world. But he doesn't have any official paperwork, and Grandmother Bright didn't help. He tries to walk right in, presenting himself as a repairman, But again, that doesn't work very well. The guards turn him away. His second plan is parkour. He can walk and climb right up the side of a tower if he wants because he's that good. He tries that, he manages to get a couple stories up, and then he falls and hurts himself. That would be enough to break most people's spine, but not him. He just has his pride wounded. At that point, he gets arrested by the guards who catch him, and they haul him before a minor nobleman who's in charge of harbor patrol and taxation. There, Seaglass explains what he was trying to do. He says, "I'm very good at making and repairing things. Hand me some scrap metal, I'll demonstrate." This puzzled official shows him a pile of broken iron junk to look at. Seaglass activates magic here, whirls and assembles this pile of metal into a working shield. That should not have been possible without special tools. And this man is impressed by that and says, "All right, I don't know how you do that, but you're useful. So long as you're not making trouble, we can watch what you're doing maybe, and we got all kinds of weirdos around here. I can get you authorization to see whether you can do anything with the lighthouses." So eventually he goes back to these lighthouses and he has actual permission to work on them. There are dragon-blooded people who have used their own magic to try to improve the lighthouses and many other things in the city, but they've pretty much done all they can with their level of power. It's impressive, but there are limits, since this stuff was originally built by Solars a long time ago with long-forgotten techniques. Seaglass, because he has artifice powers and is a Solar himself, can do a lot more easily. It's not quite as simple as touching a thing, but he has insight into these things and is a master craftsman. So, as he works, he's able to get these things to glow brighter and begin to turn more on their own with much less friction. They don't work quite as well as they may have in the old days, but they're much more effective now, and they're going to work more easily. One problem he notices as he fixes these things, he has made a difference here, but one problem is that they don't really have full power yet. There's a system called Essence that passes for electricity here, and there was a power grid, but as with the other city infrastructure, it's been repaired about as well as it can be for now by people who are not Solars. That creates an opportunity for him to fix up stuff to a better condition than it is right now. But hey, the city officials know that he's useful, and he's been able to repair the lighthouse part of it anyway. So he goes back to Grandmother Bright in the Bright District, and he boasts that he has done the job. And she is mollified somewhat. She says, "I suppose you're wanting to get housing in my district. Well, you're not going to get it. There's a waiting list. I have a very specific number of people who are allowed to live here, and a very specific number of ghosts." Seaglass is not really sure what to say to that. He was not really planning on housing, especially next to ghosts. But hey, that's all right. He says, "No, Grandmother, I'll do without. What I want is to talk with a certain alchemist that I'm told you've imprisoned because he has knowledge of the underground." And she scowls at that, saying, "Absolutely not. If you had any idea what that man did, you'd kick yourself for asking." "Then what secret is he hiding? Or more importantly, where should I start on repairing this old essence grid?" Grandmother Bright looks him over and says, "Why?" And he says, "You know who my sponsor is, the sun god. It's my responsibility to fix all this." And she says, "It's your goddamn fault the world broke in the first place." He says, "Some past incarnation of me, maybe, but I don't remember that. If you want to blame me like I'm the same person, isn't that even better reason for me to let me do my job here for a while and fix things? Or do you want to leave this old equipment broken and ruined when it doesn't have to be?" She turns away, saying, "Humph." Whatever grudge she may have had against him, or some past version of him, she has every reason to point him in the right direction. He's not been all that successful at charisma so far, but he's making a good argument. He does want to fix the city, and he has the ability to do it. So, reluctantly, she says, "There is an underground area that sensible people avoid. It's got rats and centipedes and giant spiders that you could kill, probably. They draw their nourishment from some kind of damaged power plant with an aspect of elemental wood. It's a venomous place. If you could fix it, that would add power to the city systems and get you more off my back. Why don't you go down there and try to fix it yourself, Sonny?" Seaglass descends into the ruins below the city of Chiaroscuro. These places are not just old basements and tunnels, but an ancient subway system that's long disused. There are terrible giant spiders down here that he either repels with his sword or by glowing at them with sunlight. Then he finds along the way a strange mausoleum. It's the tomb of a Solar who was murdered a long time ago. It was buried with lethal traps in an attempt to either hide the treasures that he may have been buried with, or possibly to keep him from coming back as a hungry ghost. As he continues exploring, he finds that it's worse than that. This whole area that's supposed to be around this wood-aspected old power plant underground is, a lot of it is this ancient tomb, so it's difficult for him to proceed and get any closer to where he needs to be. He studies this for a while and figures out that part of the way to bypass the traps involves staring at them for a while and just sitting there. So he understands that well enough, he's able to bypass some of the outermost traps and get deeper into the tomb region. When he does that, he encounters a demon. It's a demon that has been bound forever as a guardian of this tomb. It looks like a blood-colored, spiked, horned ape. This is the kind of thing that stupid human sorcerers occasionally summon to guard them. It doesn't always work very well. Seaglass does not speak the ancient language of Old Realm that the demons speak in, but he and the creature are able to communicate somewhat. This demon has been bound here for a very long time to a task that no longer seems to have any meaning, and it wants to go the hell home to, well, hell. It knows what words that a Solar can speak to release its binding and send it home. And Seaglass is okay with sending this demon back to hell where it belongs, but he makes a deal with it, saying, you come with me and serve me for a week, and I will let you go. And the demon goes along with that. Together, these two fight their way through the remaining sewers and pipes and old tunnels and subway networks. They fight giant spiders. And in the depths of this place, after he has used his working ability to excavate a lot of broken stone, he finds that there is an ancient power plant. This is a very magical place set up with crystals and vines and various other natural things to generate wood-aspected elemental energy and feed that into the city's power grid. However, it's not just green in here. It has an area that is shimmering with desert heat underground, and the sand is tinged with an eerie green, as though it's made of broken glass and lit by an unfamiliar sun. It strikes Seaglass as wrong, and the demon looks at this and says, "Home." Seaglass looks at that and says, "This is the control room?" And no wonder there's a problem here. There's not supposed to be a portal to hell in the power plant. That's never a good thing. Well, almost never. The Solars were known for doing some odd things with their engineering. Anyway, he has to resist this dangerous energy here, and it saps some of his power. He works quickly to repair this facility before the demon can look at him funny. And he's able to work a miracle of artifice to make this thing work properly and stabilize. That begins to shut down the hell portal. The demon stamps its feet and growls, demanding to be sent back home. Seaglass formally speaks the words that allow it to do that, and it goes home to where it belongs and won't bother people anymore. So the city will now have one additional power plant to run things like the lighthouses, and one fewer magical disaster zone. He claims a magic crystal from that power plant while he's at it, which should help his own abilities. He's able to get out without much trouble. Going back above ground, Seaglass is pleased. He's helped to improve the city a little bit and learn more about its magical secrets. He sets about repairing some wells that were assisted by this essence technology, improving the water supply for a substantial fraction of the city, tens of thousands of people even. That's plausible due to his work, the preparatory work he did with the power system and his skill at repairing everything else in the city and the pipes and ordinary things. He uses his own mundane influence to keep the mob relatively harmless, with his worst criminal aspects curbed. So he has his own personal mob working for him effectively. What now? He gets more influence from his experience that he's gotten, and he starts using his connections to make some more money, which he will share with the locals via the mob, and build up the city some more. This gang here is known as the Gold Walkers. They have a hobby of training people and pushing them to be higher rank by going into a particular district. There were a lot of shattered golden skyscrapers here, and now there's a giant field of gold shards. People make a game out of going here as the sun rises and seeing how long they can endure before getting burned and having to run for their lives. They dare him to prove himself by doing that, to rise in rank within the gang. In Seaglass's case, it's really easy. He's immune to fire and immune to blindness, so he can be there all day if he wants. But he's hoping to do that in an intelligent way so he doesn't get completely caught as obviously using magic. So he does it a smart way and manages to be pretty convincing there. He manages to endure the heat and the sunlight pretty well, and make it look like he's actually suffering a bit, but he really isn't. And while he's doing there, the blinding light causes him to think back to his distant past and possibly to another life. He can remember something, which is randomly generated. A flashback to the days when the towers were whole and the city was prosperous, and he knew someone who was a beautiful woman with wolf features, a wolf with red roses. But as he comes out of this pleasant memory, he sees people in the city that is still ruined, and they're fighting over scraps of old metal and glass. This place is a ruin, far from what it used to be, part of what it could be again. He's more determined from this experience to rebuild more of the city and make it great. The gang is impressed by his endurance, And they're pretty convinced now that he's supernatural in some way, but they're not quite sure yet, and they don't really want to ask. He just grins at their worry and awe, not explaining. He says, "Now, do you really want to improve this pace?" And that is the first adventure of Seaglass, my Solar Exalted character. Exalted is a setting created by White Wolf. It's also known for things like Vampire the Masquerade. The actual rule system that I used here was Godbound, which is by the same author as other ones that I've played, such as Worlds Without Number, and Ashes Without Number, and Wolves of God, and so on. In this case, I told you almost nothing about the specific rules or the specific stats and die rolls that I had, so I'm wondering if that worked as a storytelling method. This one was also an experiment in doing things with AI, imagery, and video a little bit differently. So I'm wondering if that was interesting at all, and whether you prefer to see specific die rolls and that sort of thing when I show this sort of video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, or contact me directly. Here are some of my books, if you're interested in my storytelling, which I can do in a more coherent way when I'm actually planning a whole story instead of just rolling things up. Thanks for listening. That's all for now.